Karen Burchill here. This is an art journal page entitled Where Flowers Bloom, Angels Sing. I used my inspirational prompt sticks to determine the steps in this. Here are the materials that I've used. So again, here are my prompt sticks. There is a video that shows how I created the prompt sticks and a list of the prompts and the categories in one of my videos. If you want to find that video, I also have prompt card video. So prior to turning on the video camera, I picked out my 6 sticks, one for every category. So red, the paint and ink medium, I picked the Inktense blocks, which is funny because I have done a lot with Inktense blocks lately. But, you know, this is what's been picked, so I'm good with it. For texture, the purple one, it said to use music paper or sheet music. So that's something I don't do enough of, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Green is the pattern, and it said to use an old or a new stencil or stamp. And since I've just purchased a whole lot of new stencils, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to use them. Blue is the color and or the theme of the page, and it says to use a gardening theme. Orange is techniques, and it says to cover the background with white or black using a mask. And yellow says to use letter stamps to make the quote that goes on the page. So those are my 6, and I pulled out some of the materials and got things ready so that the video can go a lot smoother. I've masked off areas on the stencil because I don't want to use all the parts of the stencil at all. And feel free to do that with your stencils. There's the border part which I may use on another stencil. I may just use the middle flower on another project. I do not have to use all the stencils. So keep that in mind when you buy stencils, if they have different pieces and parts that you can use. And I've just masked it off using painter's tape. You can use post-it notes or artist's tape. I just buy whatever I get at Walmart. And there are my very well-loved Inktense blocks. I just love looking at the color array and my sample page. So they're at the go. I purchased a new journal. This is a Canson mixed media journal, and I'm not sure what size the pages are. They're bigger than copy paper sheet. So when I started art journaling about 6-7 months ago, the thought of doing a large page like this scared me. And I would sit there and I wouldn't know what to do and how to place things. So I did smaller pages or half pages in smaller journals, and I did ATCs, which are the size of a playing card. They're 3.5 by 2.5 inches. We call them ATCs, or the size that you would have in a pocket letter. And that allowed me to build up my confidence and my skill level. And so I wanted to attempt a bigger sheet. I'm finding the little pages a little limiting. And typically when I start a journal, I skip the first page because it's a little intimidating, because the first page is what everybody's going to see first. So, but I'm going to do that. And I gessoed a few of the pages in this journal. when I pull out the gesso to gesso one page, I do several just to save time. So there are my music sheets. I got this at a Good Neighbor store. You can pick them up at garage sales. You can download some off the internet that are free. You can use a stamp that has music. You could also use newspaper, book paper, dictionary paper, anything that you want. There is a tie-in later with the quote, with the music that I had, because it still appeared, but you can use anything. So there you can see that the page is a little bit bigger than that. So what I'm going to do is rip this up. I am going to cover the entire surface of this journal page. I do not want the edges. I want just the music and the lyrics. And I like the texture that the uneven pages and the rips give to the page underneath. So I'm just going to rip up these two sheets very quickly into different sizes, and then I am going to attach it to the page using my Mod Podge mat. It's always a good idea to put a layer underneath and a layer on top. So once I have them all separated, I'm going to build up more layers with the sheet music. And this will all add more texture and interest to the page later on. I'm not being careful if the music is upside down or inside out. Doesn't really matter to me. So there, it's all dry. And I'm just checking to make sure that it is perfectly adhered. Sometimes the corners and edges, once you cut, tend to give off. Now the Mod Podge has left this smooth. While it's matte, it's not overly shiny, it is smooth, and I don't like the effect I'm going to get with the Inktense blocks, so I'm going to put a thin layer, watered down layer of gesso. I'm using the Liquitex brand. I have the Liquitex Basics. I got what was on sale. Stuff at Walmart I've heard is very good. It doesn't matter, but I do like how my paints and my Inktense blocks work better when there is a layer of gesso. So I'm just going to thin this with a little bit of water. And I'm pointing out that there's acrylic paint on this tray, but it's dried, and you don't have to worry about it reactivating. It will not. Once it's dry, it's dry. So I'm just reusing the same lid till it gets past that point, and then I'll just peel it off and reuse it. So I'm putting a thin layer of gesso, and then I'll be taking off some with a baby wipe. I want to see, I'm hoping that at the end I'm going to be able to see the music come through. So checking my inspirational prompt sticks, I have the two, so my next one is the Inktense blocks. I'm just picking out some colors and I'm putting them on randomly. This is just the first coat of color. I'm going to build layers of color later. Inktense blocks you can put on dry and activate with water, or you can put it on wet. I'm just slipping a plastic cutting board from the dollar store between my pages just to protect the other pages. Trying to show you how it catches. Wherever there's an edge and a ridge, the color changes, and that's part of that texture of why I wanted to layer the music sheets on there. So I'm just activating it with my finger. You can use a paintbrush to do it. You will get a different look somewhat, and it may be more to your liking. So I'm just building up. I want to have basically these colors, but I want darks and lights and an interesting background in here. The Inktense blocks pretty much dry as vibrant as they are when they go on. So trying to get some drippage. I find that with the Inktense blocks, if you put the heat tool on it as you're dripping it, it tends to catch the drip. and stops it in its tracks. So that's something that I've discovered with it. Wanting a little bit more color, some dark places, more vibrancy. Adding water, getting drippage, moving the paints around. I'm just adjusting it till I feel good about what's on the page. Sometimes if you step back and look at it from across the room or take a picture of it, you get a different perspective, and that's something I do quite often while I'm journaling, be it on the placement of pictures or quotes or just the colors. I think I just like to finger paint. So there we have it, dry. And we're going to be doing the next 3 prompts kind of together, which is use a gardening theme, use a stencil, use a new stencil, and use the black. I'm showing the Inktense blocks. I'm just keeping them out in case I have to go back and touch up any areas. If I make a mistake and I have to clean it up, I can reapply the color. So just keep them out so I have a good record. So here we are with the next prompts. And here's my Zen flower from Crafter's Workshop. And I'm just trying to decide, I don't want it straight on center. I like it when it's partially off and on the page. And I'm thinking about the quote. And I'm adjusting to the fact that this is a huge picture or journal page. I'm not quite used to that. So I'm going to use, my plan was to use my Liquitex Basics, and I do start out using it, but I switched to my craft store bargain black paint because the Liquitex is a little too full-bodied for what I'm doing. It was too slow. And I'm going to apply it using a makeup sponge. I just keep a whole bunch of them there. Once I'm done with it, I throw them in the water, clean them off. They're stained, but they're perfectly dry and they don't reactivate and muddy your next project, so that you can get lots of use out of them. So I'm just taping my stencil down a little bit to keep it from moving. I'm pouncing up and down with the paint, and when I dab it into the dish, I'm dabbing outside on the dry part of the dish so I don't have it totally wet, and I'm not pressing straight down. I'm trying to avoid some leakage underneath the stencil. I'm okay with if there is some. I want it to look natural. I don't want it to be so perfect. So here we have the unveiling, which is always the exciting part. So I'm liking the look of that, and I'm trying, okay, where else am I going to put this? And I'm thinking, okay, where am I putting my quote? And at this point, I didn't even have my quote. So I went off camera and chose my quote, where flowers bloom, angels sing, and I stamped it using the font that I wanted to use. And I cut the words apart, and I was just playing with the placement of them. And now, if I put the words here, where will I stencil? Where will the stencil go? I'm new to this. It doesn't, some of the people that have done it for a long time, they put it in the right place. They just have a natural way of doing it. Maybe they follow the rules of composition. I don't know. I kind of go by what I like. Now I'm seeing that the coils on the side are going to block the paint, and since I don't want it black, I'm just going to mask that off. So here I go, pouncing again. And I do dry each of the flowers before I put the stencil back on. It dries really quickly, but I just don't want to smudge it. I love this technique of putting black or white over top and showing the colors below. I just think it's just so effective. And here we go. I'm putting the saying in there. Now I want to put another one. I think multiples of 3. You see that a lot, and it's true. I'm going to put some in this corner, and I just want to make sure that I have room to put my words. So once I get it, just tape the stencil down a little bit and back to pouncing with the makeup applicator. So I'm going to grab my Dilutions clear stamps that I'm using. I love this font. It finally made it to the top of my wish list. And I'm going to use Stays On. Now normally I would spell the whole word and put it on, and I'm going to show you how that works because I found it really interesting when I saw it for the first time. So just press the block on there. Now because there's plastic and between the letters, they're spaced quite far apart. So I'm going to put each letter one by one on the back on an acrylic block, just so I can squeeze them a little closer together. My spacing is a little tight, and I just want to make sure that I get it perfectly. Just figuring out where the height of where I want it in there, and I'm putting each of the letters back in on the plastic storage sheet as I go. Because there's texture and it's not an even surface because of the layers of music paper that exists, I'm being very careful to press down hard so that I get an even stamp. I'm not trying to make the letters perfectly on the same line. If I wanted to do that, I would draw a line on there and then erase it afterwards. So off camera, I focused this so that you could see the detail of what I was doing, and then I forgot. So I'm putting the rest of the quote down below, one at a time. I'm edging it with my Inktense block. I go around with the black and I just activate it with the baby wipe. This just finishes off the page. Now I decide to outline my letters with the Uniball Signo white gel pen. If I make a mistake, and you will see that I do, you can go in with a baby wipe and clean it out, dry it, and go back. I also go back afterwards and just touch up with my black gel pen any places where I did a little too much white where the black should be. Right there, I'm erasing, drawing, and back we go. I find that all the gel pens and Pitt pens don't work so well until the paper's cool. The heat of the page after you've dried something seems to affect mine. I don't know if anybody else has had that situation. So I'm highlighting this and finishing off just before my battery dies. So off camera, I decide that I want to add some white splatters. So I thin my white acrylic paint and splatter it all over. And it added some texture and interest, and it lightened the page up just that little bit. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more videos. Bye!